Hello, everyone. This is your host, Alex Valgood, and this is Leap of Health. And today, not tonight, today, we have Kiko Kennedy. She's part of the quantum biology practitioners, and she specialized on pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, and what has to do with the circadian rhythms within that. Um, Part of this topic. So thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on, Alex.
No,
I
thank
enjoy
you, thank
your
you.
podcast, and you've had some really great interviews in the past. So it's exciting to be here and share with people what I've learned, and I'm excited to talk today.
Yes, I am super excited. I gotta say, I'm always fascinated by the circadian rhythm and how it works and how it helps us and what it does for us. And for everybody listening, you guys might be familiar what we're talking about because there's a few episodes on circadian rhythm and how that works. But before we dive into that topic, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got here with this quantum biology practitioners now.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. I early on in my life decided I wanted to help with mamas and babies and help babies be born in a good, happy, healthy way. And I just find this time period so fascinating. And I, just have really dove into studying it. I went to school, thought I was going to maybe become a doctor, maybe an OB. And along the course of that, I started getting to the point in my pre-med program of applying for things. And then I was looking at it and I realized I don't want surgical training. That's not my role. It's amazing that it exists, and the advances are really impressive. But for me, that wasn't the right path. So I swerved quickly into at the very end towards science writing and switched my degree around and really dove into how research works, and that informs a lot of my work today. I was going to school at a time when there was a lot of like online education and online work, remote work was really exploding. And so I started having some different health troubles myself. I was going to school online. I had a toddler in the home, and I was going to school online, working online, just so much time on the computer. And so I started having really bad skin rashes and like seasonal allergies that were really weighing me down, and medication didn't help, and the doctors couldn't give me any information about what was going on. So my husband he found some information about light at night and how that could be a health hazard. And so I wasn't even thinking about my health challenges I was having. So many people have those issues. I just kind of thought, oh, well, that's just normal. As you get older, you get allergies, which isn't the case, but it is true for a lot of people. So we started blocking blue light at night. I got a screen protector for my computer, my laptop. And after a couple of years of doing that, we just kept with it because it felt good. It was kind of in retrospect, I looked back and I said, hey, it's been years since I've had an allergic contact dermatitis outbreak. Hey, my seasonal allergies are super mild. They're nothing like what I used to experience. And so that was when I kind of realized, oh, I think that it's these things that I'm doing. And then I had an experience after my third baby's birth that by that time I had been doing quantum health things for quite a while, and I kind of had just gotten into the mindset that everyone knows this. But after my third baby was born, which we had some different challenges and upset, we'd been evacuated from a wildfire at the end of that pregnancy. So a really stressful time. And we breathed in a lot of smoke and things. And when my baby was born, she needed a little bit of help with her breathing. So we ended up in the NICU, which was a very short stay. But during that time, my eyes were open to the fact that most people do not know this circadian rhythm info. And the practitioners that were there helping me through this challenging, stressful time, I was seeing the health challenges that they were having. I was seeing the environment that they were in, the environment all these babies were in. And that was the time when I just it was like a reality shock for me. And I said, that's it. I have to share, I have to teach, because even though I think this is every day, even though I've been doing this for over 10 years, other people don't know. And it's really, really important. So that's when I found the Quantum Biology Collective and did their certification, and then married that with the doula work. I think I left that out of the story, but after I decided that I wasn't going to become a doctor, I decided, after my babies are grown, I'm going to become a traditional midwife. I'm going to do the apprenticeship. In the meantime, I'm going to be a doula, and I'm going to support families that way in a non-medical role. So now I write a lot, and I dive deep in all of the science about why and how the light environment affects the perinatal period. And I'm really passionate about sharing with other practitioners who are helping people so that they can add this, because it supports everything else that everyone's already doing. For nutritional therapists or body workers or anyone who's supporting women through this, it can just go right along with those other therapies and lifestyle choices that people are making to help their babies have a better time, set them up for, I think, being strong and healthy their whole lives. Our circadian rhythms are programmed in that first 2 to 3 years of life. So it makes a big difference across the entire lifespan. They're starting to see that as adults, our risk of diabetes, metabolic disorders, cancers, cardiovascular, immune problems, all of those things might be programmed by our time in the womb and early life via the circadian programming that our moms and our early environments gave to us. So that's where it's really hopeful for future generations too. If we can get this information out there, we can really change and turn things around for the better and have health be on an upward trend rather than kind of a downward trend, as a lot of the larger statistics are showing right now. Long story, but that's where I'm at.
No, it's great. And I think more and more, as you said, people that does body work, healers, all sorts of practitioners are trying to not just stay within what they do, whether it's herbs, movement, tissue work, anything like that. Now they're trying to be like, well, it's not just this, is actually a combination of all that. And I think the circadian rhythm really kind of like involves everything at once. And so for everybody that's listening, and perhaps this is like their first episode with us, tell us just like, in a short thing, how the circadian rhythm works, just so kind of like they have an idea, because I feel like there's a lot of misconception of like, oh, it's just like what makes you wake up, or
Right.
like like very like short instance, but it's a bit more than that. So if you can just
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how it works, so they can get a better idea of what it is actually.
Yeah, perfect. And I used to think that too. I used to think that that you would program your circadian rhythm by going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time. And that was pretty much the gist of what I knew about it. And in fact, the circadian rhythm is controlling everything that happens in the body. Pretty much, it is controlling the timing. It's a master timekeeper. And so there's a main central clock in the brain, and then there are peripheral clocks throughout the body. And so that brain is giving signals to the digestive system, to the cardiovascular system, to the immune system, telling them what to expect. And so it's programmed by light and darkness, and that's coming in through the eye and skin. And it's also programmed by our meal timing. So when the belly stretches, that also gives cues that program the circadian rhythm. And then our social cues and things are actually like at the third level. So going to bed and waking up at the same time. Those are social cues that do influence the circadian rhythm, but they're not as powerful as the light signals or the food signals. So it's really light timing and meal timing that drive when everything happens in the body. And so when we have missed time signals, that's when things start to go awry, and it messes with our cellular energetics and how our energy feels. And then it also can like make us more susceptible to infections, more likely to get food poisoning, and different things that are like really acute. It's what makes, like, if you stay up too late and have to get up really early, you know, that kind of heart pounding feeling that you get, and it's like hard to regulate your body temperature. Those are all effects, like acute effects of when the circadian rhythm gets disrupted on a short-term basis. And then on a long-term basis, that happening over and over and over again can lead to chronic health conditions and really make chronic health conditions worse. Even if they aren't a causal factor, it is something that should be supporting everything happening and supporting the body's ability to heal itself.
Yeah, for sure. It's so important. I think it's just one of the most important things that we forget, because this is the as you mentioned, it's a timekeeper. So if the body doesn't know exactly what time it is, because you're waking up at 11 or noon, now all your our systems are working out of sync. They don't know what time it is.
Mm-hmm.
Melatonin, it's not produced as it's supposed to, which is which is what is gonna make the body recover at night when we sleep. So it is super, super important. But yeah, if you want to deep dive more on the circadian rhythm, there is an episode. So just look for it so you can really hear exactly how that works, and how every time of the day our circadian rhythm is working, and how it works with the sun and the light, as you mentioned. And I love that you also mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that it's also regulated by how we eat, because I think also I don't think
Mm-hmm.
we really we I think we understand now more that it's because of the light we're seeing throughout the day, but we don't put two and two together that it's also when we eat. What's that relationship? How does that work? And
Mm-hmm.
how it really affects us when we eat one day at 8 in the morning, one 8 at 2 in the morning, and we keep eating all day long. And a lot of us are guilty to be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, well, it's 10, 11, and 9. It's a good time for a snack.
It is, yeah. It can feel that way sometimes, and especially if we don't eat breakfast, which is in the modern schedule, like for so many people that are working jobs where they have to be at work right in the morning, or bringing their kids to school, or taking themselves to school, whatever. It can be really easy to just skip that morning meal. And that morning meal is important for a circadian cue, because it does directly impact the circadian rhythm. Like I said, it's one of the ways that it's programmed. So that tells the body that it's daytime. But it also catches the digestive window where in the morning, when we get that morning light, it's also affecting like what our digestive system is expecting. And we can actually measure the microbiome, like the microbes that are active in the intestine, and that actually has a daily fluctuation too. And so it's also that the microbiome is primed in the morning to give optimal digestion. So when you eat in the morning, that morning meal, you actually have more digestive power and can get more of the nutrition and energy out of it to keep you feeling full and satiated throughout the day. And this is a really important for women who are trying to conceive or who are pregnant, because energy requirements are higher then, and you need all of your hormones to be in order. And the endocrine system is also in a feedback loop with the circadian rhythm. So that's also stimulating the progesterones and estrogen and all of the sex hormones to be released at the right time. So that morning meal is so key. And then across the day, the microbiome is shifting and changing. And until after dark, we see that particularly glucose metabolism becomes very dysregulated. So if eating that evening snack, particularly if it's very sugary, so one, it disrupts the rhythm to be eating after dark, just because even like drinking huge glasses of water after dark, because even the belly just stretching out is a circadian cue. But particularly eating carbohydrates. And we know this from looking at shift workers and people who work at night. They tend to be eating, like you said, they tend to eat in the daytime and the nighttime. They don't tend to actually have a daytime fast. So there's new studies where they're starting to look at daytime restricted feeding windows, even for people who are working at night, because it's so likely for diabetes or other metabolic conditions to arise from people eating after dark. So it's really important to get that morning meal so that you don't have that urge to eat after dark, when it will then disrupt your melatonin secretion, and your microbiome isn't set. So especially for people that are like young and going out and partying, and like if you go out and eat that cheap burrito at 2 a.m, you're much more likely to get food poisoning than if you ate that same burrito at 11 a.m, just because of what's happening with your gut microbiome and your immune system. Your immune system after dark is not expecting a bunch of invasion.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's super important just to keep that in mind. I know we did talk about this with another quantum biologist practitioner about the people that works at night and how damaging it is. And and we talk about this as like, I know some people have to work at nighttime, but
Mm-hmm.
it's just so terrible because what it does for their body. Their clocks are
Mm-hmm.
so off. They have to be up for, maybe their shift starts at 10 p.m. until 8 a.m., and then they sleep right when they should be looking at the light throughout the day. So it is
Mm-hmm.
just something to think about if if you're listening and you have those shifts, whether it's for work or because you're partying too much.
Mm-hmm.
There's just
Yeah.
certain things that you can think about. And if you do it for a certain time, that's fine. But if you do it for a long, long time, that will
Mm-hmm.
really make a difference on how your health will be at that time. So just are things to think about, because obviously there's some people, and we're grateful that there's the night shift for the doctors, there's the night shift for certain restaurants when we're hungry, things that are open that they have, you have to go to work and things like that. But just keep that in mind. Maybe you perhaps later you might want to shift those works or those shifts that you're working, because it will be pretty bad at the long run.
Yeah. And they are finding that the younger a person is while they're doing this, the more detrimental. And that older people might be able to handle it better, possibly because over time, melatonin tends to decline production with age, whereas young people really have a high need for melatonin. And so even people that just work night shift for a short period of time, like in their early 20s, sometimes are still having effects later on from
Oh,
those years, even after they have left night shift. So it is definitely a concern for young people, particularly. And there's also a lot of things that can be done to make night shift better. Like if you do, for people who do have to work night shift. And as a birth worker, this is close to my heart because all birth workers pretty much will work some amount of night shift because babies tend to be born at night. And we could talk about the circadian timing of birth. And there's a reason for that because of the effect of oxytocin and melatonin working together. So labor onset tends to be at night. So supporting birth is a time for where people will be up at night, most likely. And
mhm.
so having shorter shifts is really important. If you can possibly have your sleep window before or after work still overlap the natural darkness, even if it's not the full dark, but even just to have a few hours where you're overlapping the natural darkness of sleep, that can be really important to keeping you somewhat in time with the sun. Having the daytime eating windows where you're eating your big meals of the day. And if you do have to snack during your shift, to choose a high protein snack or high fat and just skip carbohydrates at night. So eating like nuts or jerky or hard-boiled eggs, things like that, that won't trigger the bad insulin response from the sugars, can be really important for that time. And breaking it up with more people so that there's more people covering the shifts at night rather than working like a 16-hour, 12-hour shift can really help. And then working with the lighting too. So you want to have enough light that you can see and do your job safely. But try to have it still be like a cool, dim, dark environment as though people were sleeping, and that will still allow melatonin to be flowing, even if you are working. People think of melatonin as a sleep hormone, but melatonin is actually a healing hormone that is secreted in darkness regardless of whether you're asleep or not. So many of the night shift workers who don't end up getting cancer and things, when they've looked at them, it turns out they are still having pretty healthy melatonin secretion compared with the people who can't handle night shift work. And we're still kind of trying to figure out, why do some people handle this better than others? There might be a genetic component or other lifestyle factors that we don't fully know yet. So definitely paying attention to your own body and knowing what's going on with you, and does it feel good or not? Do you have a lot of heart pounding feelings? Does your temperature dysregulated? Do you have poor digestion, like IBS type symptoms, trouble sleeping after your shift, that kind of thing? Then those would all be signs that your body's not tolerating night shift. Whereas if you just, really feel like you're thriving in the environment, then it could be possible that you are one of those people who can just, really make it and handle it. And like you said, we're grateful to people who work night shift. It keeps our society running. That's part of why humans are so strong and amazing, is that we actually can be awake. Like most animals can't be awake anytime day or night. They, physiologically aren't able to do that, but humans can. So it's a strength. And to me, I don't really like the idea that night shift is all bad. I just think that we need to shift night shift and to make some cultural shifts so that people who work night shift aren't suffering from circadian disruption, even though they're up at night.
Yeah, no, that's great. And those are really great tips, because I think you might be thinking like, well, I can't leave my job at this
Yeah.
moment, but there's some
Mm-hmm.
really little things that you could do and really make a difference on you working at night until you're able to make a shift and maybe not work that shift anymore. But anyways, there's so many things, but this is just for people to think about it, that there's ways for you to actually be healthier, or the best you could do by working this time of hours. And if you're just doing it for fun, think about it twice, because so instead of going, and I mean, I love going out, but now it's more of like, do I want to go out 5 days a week, or maybe I just want to go out one or two, because I know
Mm-hmm.
how my body's gonna react, and it's just priorities. If you want to be healthier, then you do this. If you just don't care and whatever, and you want to pay big amounts on and bills on medical health, that's also your option. This is a free
Mm-hmm.
country, but you know what I'm saying? If you want to feel
Yeah.
good, just think about it. We can also have fun, but in certain amounts and in certain ways. So that's just for you to make the choice. But anyways, I think that gives us an idea of how the circadian works. And now let's talk a little bit about how does it work with a pregnant woman, because I really never thought about it until I came across you. And I was like, oh, of course that makes sense, because the mom is making the baby. This should have
Yeah.
some sort of impact within the baby. How
Mm-hmm.
how does this work with a woman that's pregnant, and how does she get ready, or what are some of the things that you tell your clients when
Mm-hmm.
when they're getting ready to become a mom?
Yeah. Preconception is so important. And I really think that it's ideal if a family can prepare ahead of time if they want to make a baby. And so the circadian rhythm is going, like I said, it's in a feedback loop with the endocrine rhythm, and the endocrine is controlling all of the sex hormones. This is true for men and women. So for folks that are having trouble with their hormones, then it could be a sign that there's circadian disruption. So stabilizing and strengthening the circadian rhythm is a really good step for optimizing fertility. And part of that is that melatonin is a really powerful antioxidant. And in these days, with all of the non-native EMFs and staying up late and different like food additives and things can all cause oxidative stress in the body. And that's a sign of the the mitochondria are going to be working and they're producing this. And if they're healthy, then everything is in line good. But when the mitochondria are stressed out, then it's overall the body doesn't have enough energy to heal itself and clean itself. So part of it has to do with melatonin and melatonin's protective effect of mitochondria that give the energy for reproduction. So a strong, healthy, energetic body can make strong, healthy, energetic sperm and eggs. We always talk about women having, you know, the 30-day menstrual cycle or 28-day menstrual cycle. And so, of course, we're thinking about building up her reserves, but sperm are created on a 60-day cycle. So it's actually a little bit longer period of time that men should be thinking about balancing their redox and sleeping well and taking care of themselves extra special before, so that they have the most healthy possible sperm to contribute to making this baby. And then, of course, once sperm and egg are united inside of the mom, then it's, you know, then it's kind of bumped into her core. Of course, her ovum needs to be healthy too, but the circadian rhythm then is going to facilitate the implantation process, the growth of the baby, the growth of her placenta. And once the placenta is formed, it is actually it has a lot of circadian clock genes in it controlling its timing, but it is also a major producer of melatonin as well, which we think of as a circadian hormone, but there's a pool of melatonin that comes from our circadian rhythm. It also comes from healthy mitochondria, particularly when stimulated by infrared light. So getting sunshine stimulates the body to produce melatonin in the daytime. And also some of the foods we eat have melatonin, and the microbiome also produces melatonin for us. So having a healthy microbiome is also an important factor to consider. This melatonin, like I said, it's influencing the implantation and the placental development, and then the placenta starts creating it. So mom's melatonin is actually rising all throughout her pregnancy. And it is protecting the baby from oxidative stress, and it is giving it its timing. So melatonin flows freely between mama and baby. And at the time of birth, the melatonin is actually what's going to prime the uterus to contract and signal the timing of labor. So labor timing is a big mystery. Everyone always wants to know, when's it going to start? And a lot of people these days, I think upwards of maybe 25% of women don't go into labor naturally anymore. They are induced. And we see a huge amount of circadian disruption also. And the circadian rhythm should be priming the hormones, and particularly the melatonin hormone needs to be really high to create the strong contractions. So there's some indication for women who are having their labor induced with synthetic oxytocin, Pitocin, to also receive supplemental melatonin at that time, since if her oxytocin isn't starting the labor process, it's likely there's also melatonin, and melatonin has pain relieving effects too. So when women who are receiving Pitocin, it can be a really intense and painful experience, and the melatonin can tamper the pain. So it makes stronger contractions that actually feel less painful, which is a good thing, to create a smooth birth and help the woman relax into letting her baby move through the birth canal. And then it's also helping with the oxidative stress. It's considered for there to be a physiological rise in oxidative stress when the baby switches from having placental nutrition through the umbilical cord to breathing oxygen. You know, some of the main free radicals are called reactive oxygen species, because oxygen is actually very damaging to cells if it's not bound properly. So we use it for energy, like blowing on a fire. But if there's too much of it, then it can hurt cells. And so melatonin is one of the things that will bind those reactive oxygen species and make them into forms that don't hurt the body or the cells, which is really important for the baby as it's learning how to breathe oxygen for the very first time. So that's some of how it works in pregnancy. And like I said, these circadian genes get programmed, and that programming can last for the entire lifetime if the baby, as they grow up, if they were in an unhealthy circadian environment, they would have to do significant work to reprogram their body after that, because that's what they have grown up feeling as normal in their body. So they will grow up thinking that they are a night owl, that that's a fixed way of being for them, right? And I know many people that way that then encounter quantum biology and circadian biology. They start changing their light environment, they start changing their eating habits, and then suddenly they're waking up feeling refreshed at sunrise. And they think, wait, for decades I thought I was a night owl, and now here I am, like happy eating breakfast, watching the sunrise. I never thought this was possible. But that's because the circadian rhythm can be reprogrammed all the way even into old age. Like in nursing homes, they employ circadian strategies for folks with dementia if they get sundowning syndrome. Because sometimes as soon as the sun goes down, they start getting super agitated and wandering around and being very unruly and difficult for the community. And there's no medication that will help. The only thing that works are circadian balancing strategies for that. That's the only thing they've discovered so far. So that's one of the things I like to wrap up my talks with usually, is to say it's never too late, because sometimes people think, oh, I was on my phone scrolling all night with my babies. I was sleeping terrible. I feel awful. And now, this, that, or the other, I wish I would have done differently. And I always say, like, it's never too late to start. You can always start help fixing a healthy circadian rhythm. And also, like, if you're caretaking your parents or grandparents, you can even help them with their circadian rhythm. And that's one of the places where I kind of latched onto it as a core part of my practice, because it's so powerful and so accessible. And so anyone can do it. Anyone can turn their lights down at sunset. Anyone can decide to stop eating at sunset, and that they're going to have, eat more of their food earlier in the day. These are things that don't really change what or how you're living all that much, just little tweaks to make really big differences in health outcomes and how you feel.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just amazing, right? This little thing called circadian rhythm can really affect and make your baby either better or not. And how it can
Mm-hmm.
really just affect you from the time you decide you wanted to have a baby or you want to conceive a baby, the difference that it can make by you just, making your circadian rhythm good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot to think about it, but as you said, it's not like we're telling you, oh, you gotta move from this state to this state because this is where you fix it, something
Yeah.
crazy and radical like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually something very simple, and some little changes that you could do in your daily life, and that will really help with your circadian rhythm to actually make everything else work well. In this case,
Mm-hmm.
talking about the new moms and the new parents that want to conceive a baby, all the way to actually having the baby. And I like to point out, like, you're so right. Like, I hear more and more new moms saying, yeah, they're gonna induce my baby because baby, it's not coming out. But and
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was weird, because I'm thinking, like, how they did that in the old times. But really, in the old times, they really didn't have that problem, because they didn't have all these lights everywhere that are affecting our circadian rhythms. They really were like with candle lights, and we know that light is very dim. It really didn't affect us much, and the way they lived, obviously. But yeah, it's amazing how these little things that we're making normal, like, you know, um, inducing a baby, now it's so common, right? Like, or even people now, younger moms are like, well, I want my baby to be born on this day, so I'm gonna be induced by my doctor or whatever. It is
Mm-hmm.
so like crazy. I mean, by all means, if you want your baby to be born on whatever a specific date, it's fine. But just know that that might be also causing a lot stress on the baby, and when it comes to the future of the baby, when it comes to like circadian rhythm and things like that. And so it's just, things to think about, if you really want to have a baby, and a healthy baby, and also have a healthy pregnancy for yourself. So I think that that's really just cool to know, and things to keep in mind. And what is cool too is like how you end what you were telling us is that it's never too late to do this. And I believe, and correct me if this is wrong, but our circadian rhythm can be reset in about 48 hours or 3 days, something like that, right? And we're like work on it.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely can start showing signs. Yeah, I think within 2 days, really easily, if you just start cutting your evening light, then it's definitely, you can physically notice a difference. If you have been having a long-term health condition like PCOS and endometriosis are both really implicated with circadian disruption. So that can take longer to heal. The longer you've been sick, the longer it can take to heal when you're having that full melatonin circulation. But at least that's like the thing that can turn it around, where you could, because in those conditions, sometimes it's really hard to conceive a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And they're some of the most common reasons for infertility in women. And we're starting to see a lot of young girls, you know, when they start their periods, they're already having these really painful periods and getting put on hormonal birth control and things, because even a lot of doctors don't know the power of light. It takes, they say it takes about 17 years for information to move from the research into the practice. So that's another goal that I have with my work, is I'm constantly bringing forward research. If you go and look, like in my practitioner training, we're looking at papers that are published 2023, 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019. We're looking at really, really new perspectives on things. And so that information isn't going to be with most general practitioners until later on. So I like to give that to my clients and also to other practitioners who are ready for this faster level of assimilation. I think the internet is also really accelerating that. So you do now see some doctors who pick an area of focus, and rather than just getting their medical training and going to school, like you said, there's a lot of people who are picking up other pieces to their modality, whatever their modality of choice is, then they're grabbing other pieces to add to it, so it's complementary. And that's a really powerful thing that's happening right now that I fully support. And one of the reasons I love quantum biology is that it is interdisciplinary, where we're looking at facts from different fields, not just staying within one narrow area of focus, but instead having our eyes open to, oh, can this help? Oh, can this help? Oh, what does this influence this? Oh, if I put this information, does all of this now make more sense? That kind of thing, that kind of thinking is really what's going to advance everything to a higher level and move things along faster for families, because babies are being born. And
All
those
the
babies
time.
deserve the very best. So if we can
Yes.
bring this information out, and so if families can request it, if they can ask their doctor, oh, hey, you know, I'm thinking about working on my sleep, and, you know, what do you think about light at night? And the doctor might say, oh, you know, this or that. If the doctor goes and looks at that research, then they'll say, oh, that does make a big deal. Maybe I'm going to start informing my clients about this, not just to say, oh, it's important in pregnancy to have healthy sleep, but say, oh, it's important to have healthy sleep, and here are some things you can do. You can go outside first thing in the morning. You can have a large breakfast. You can stop eating near sunset. You can dim your lights and make sure you don't have overhead lights shining on you, but use like floor lamps instead, because that will give your body the cues it needs to have a more restful night of sleep with full melatonin secretion. That can make a big difference, right? And it's really pretty easy to do, like you said, that if you just make the little shift, it's not like buying a whole new house or moving or really expensive supplements. One of the other places this is so important is postpartum. You know, we talk so much about the postpartum mood disorders and how common they are for women and also for men, how common it is for children to grow up and start having like ADHD or autism symptoms or different mental health challenges starting very early on. And all mental health challenges have circadian disruption manifesting as sleep disruption as one of the diagnosing factors. So working on sleep helps with all mental health conditions, and that includes postpartum, but there's very specific needs postpartum because babies need care around the clock. Mm-hmm. It would be dangerous for a baby to sleep 12 hours straight right after it's born, right? So that means that mom has to be waking up with her baby. And so if she's flipping on the lights, then that is tanking her melatonin. And one of the pieces of research I've read is that with postpartum psychosis, which is one of the scariest of the postpartum conditions, it may be related to an overly severe drop in melatonin postpartum. So if the mom can do everything she can to protect her melatonin, because she's been having higher levels than she ever has in her life during pregnancy because of the placental melatonin and because of the demands of pregnancy. So once her baby's born and the placenta comes out, then her melatonin is going to suddenly drop back to the pre-pregnancy level. And then if she's flipping on her lights and snacking all night and doom scrolling on her phone while her baby is crying, and she, her cortisol's through the roof and she has no support, and then she starts having very crazy, scary thoughts because her brain is never able to heal itself. That's where just having that dim, warm, cool postpartum environment, which traditionally we used to support moms through this. And a lot of cultures around the world had moms stay in the bedroom, keep it nice and warm, keep it nice and dark for the first 40 days after the birth. And that warm, dark environment will facilitate a huge amount of melatonin and oxytocin release for the bonding experience. But nowadays, many moms are spending the first few days postpartum in the hospital, which has generally really harsh fluorescent or LED overhead lighting with no natural sunshine or fresh air. And then they go home and have maybe a small amount of time with their husband or support network, and then they're just left by themselves. And so it makes sense that women are having so much trouble postpartum, because it's so unphysiological the way that it's being managed right now. So it's another place where to have that initial nurturing cocoon space, and then to be starting to get out and do fresh air. Like one of the other traditions that I love to share about was that many places had a tradition of when it was time to go and introduce baby to the sun, and to have that be a special momentous occasion, the first time baby's going to go and greet the sunshine. So I've written on my blog about all of the benefits of sunshine for babies, because I think people are so afraid of that, and they see that in the research, it's good for their eye development, it's good for the immune system development, it's good for the mom's mood, it's good for baby's motor development, learning how to crawl and all of that. And then many moms are afraid of actually giving their baby enough sunshine, that they're protecting them overly so that the baby's sunlight deficient. Because we have to be careful about not letting them get dehydrated or too hot or those kinds of things. But moms are really smart and can know if their baby is getting too much sunshine or not. I don't think we need all of this fear around sunshine in babies. So I've written about this, about what are ways to take steps to be careful about introducing baby to the sun in a more traditional way that, historically moms were doing this. And it's one of the pieces that's kind of fallen by the cultural wayside. Thanks to all of the artificial lighting in the houses, we don't feel the need to go outside the way we do when our houses are really dim. Mm-hmm. Then you see the sunshine outside and you think, oh, I want to go out there, I want to go and feel that. But when you're inside and you're looking through the window, you're like, oh, it's nice and bright in here and it's pretty out there. And artificial light doesn't actually have all of the frequencies that natural sunlight does, but it tricks our brains into thinking that it's enough because it's so enriched with the blue light. So it's kind of like sugar, like artificial sugar, where we eat that and we think, oh, this is really good, I want more and more and more of it. Whereas if we're eating like a whole unprocessed sugar, you're eating it and then you get to a point where your body says, oh, I've had enough of this, right? Like if you're eating berries, then you suddenly it's like, oh, now it just doesn't taste good anymore. But if you're eating the artificial sugar, you don't get that sense. So same thing, if you go out in the sunshine, eventually you say, oh, it's too much, it's too bright, I need to go away from it. Whereas with the overhead lights in our houses, we never really have that feeling. When we're just inside of it, we can just kind of be in it and in it and in it. And we never get the sense of when we've had too much light.
Yeah, that was just perfect explained. Thank you. Yeah, that was great. It's so important. It's just so important for everybody listening right now. That specific part. We need the sun. We can't be really living within the artificial lights that our house have or works, because we're not gonna ever get the full benefits from the sun, from the light from the sun. throughout the day. So it was beautifully explained. So I hope everybody really understood the importance of like why you need the sun and not the actually artificial light. It will never, never be the same. And it got me curious. Um is it when is the time or the a better time to introduce the baby to the sunlight? Is it too early right after birth? Do you have to wait a few days? Do you need the baby to be bigger, like a month? I don't know. When it's a
Mhm.
good day, when that's the mom, it's officially a little bit more confident to be like, it's okay to take the baby out.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the mom, the family, what's happening. This is one of those areas where there's a big leeway, because like climate differences, for example, will make a big difference. So after birth for a baby, if they start developing jaundice, that is a sign that the mom had pretty significant circadian disruption and oxidative stress during her
Yes.
pregnancy. And newborn jaundice is one of the health conditions where light therapy itself is a treatment for it. And so they will put the baby under bright blue artificial lights because the blue light will break up the pigment, the bilirubin, into a form that's easier for the baby to excrete. But in the research, it is just as effective to bring baby into the sunshine. And this is true for mild cases of jaundice as well as severe cases of jaundice. It's just not convenient if the baby has other health troubles where they're hooked up to the machines and everything, then you can't really bring
Take
all
them
of
out.
that machinery outside. So in that case, the artificial light makes sense of the next best option. But for anyone whose baby isn't attached to those machines, if they have like a baby that they can carry around, sunshine might be indicated earlier for a baby who's having jaundice than for a baby who isn't having jaundice. And then depending on the mom's energy too, like some women have fairly quick births and they're maybe ready to go outside within the first couple of days. Other women might have really rough birth experiences and they might need to rest inside a bit longer. And then we have homes that have now windows, like opening windows. So opening the window. And then one of the best time, there is the best time of day to do that, which of course is the morning sunlight. The early morning sunlight doesn't have UV frequencies. So all babies are born with lower amounts of melanin, which is the pigment that our skin has. We think of melanin as being like in the mainstream, we think of melanin as a protective, as like natural sunscreen or something. It's so much more than that. Melanin actually, it does have a protective factor. And one of the things they think that it protects the folate inside of the cells. And of course, folate is really important for fertility, but it also is a source of energy. Melanin is like human chlorophyll. So when sunlight hits melanin, the melanin can actually separate and reform the water molecule and harvest electrons out of that. So slowly building up baby's melanin. At first, they're born without that, and the UV light can penetrate their skin. So that's why they do need a little bit shorter time frames of that overhead sunlight when it's really bright. And you'll kind of watch your baby and know newborn babies don't really like it when it's really, really bright sunlight. They like a more dim environment. So you can watch your baby's eye development and kind of see like first a little bit of morning sunlight and see how they handle that. And then over time, more and more as you notice your baby being able to be more alert and more looking around, it's really good for their eye development. But
Mm-hmm.
if you just watch your baby's cues, then you can know, and you feel yourself too. Like that's why I always tell people, like you can trust yourself to know if you've had enough sun or not. You can trust, does it feel good still, or is it starting to feel bad? The sun is really powerful in communicating that in our bodies when we learn how to trust them and not rely on sunglasses and sunscreens
Yeah.
because those can really confuse the signals that the body is receiving. So, and sunscreen is actually contraindicated on babies because their skin is more permeable. And so most sunscreen lotions, even if you were asked your pediatrician, they would say, "Oh no, don't put that on your baby." You know want to take them out with their skin, not with any kind of like sun cream.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And is it better to, I mean, I'm not a mom, so I wouldn't know these things, but is it better to have the baby with the least clothes they can, right? Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. And mama too. Yeah. Both of you. And I mean everyone. I always say that too. Like when you're looking at like when you go out in the morning for sunlight, there's the sunlight through your eyes to program your circadian rhythm, but then there's also sunlight and infrared across your body to stimulate your cells to produce melatonin. So the more of your skin that's open, the more opportunity for that there is.
Yeah.
All right, just a second. Super. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, all the information, everything that you have tell us today is just freaking amazing. I think it gave us many things to really think about and how we can change a little bit in our daily life. So before we go, if is there anything else that you would like to tell to our audience?
Oh, I could keep talking about this stuff for hours. I'm obsessed with all of this information and how it can help families. So, if you are listening and have questions about this and want to learn more, then I definitely recommend that just reach out to me because I love sharing about this. So, you can find me on my website or email me. I have a contact form, and I pretty much respond to everyone that writes. But sometimes takes a little while because I do have a family of my own. I have 4 children and am busy, but I do try to make the time to respond to everybody. So yeah, I think that's the best ways.
Yes.
And then maybe we could do another episode soon to follow up on some of this because we could talk so much about breastfeeding. We could talk so much more about postpartum. We could talk about exercise. We could get into more about like hydration and specifics of quantum nutrition and circadian nutrition. I mean, we can really do a lot here. So it can be really simple, like sunshine, darkness, earthing, or we can go really complex.
Yeah, no, thank you. We'll definitely we'll keep this conversation going. For sure, I will put all your links on the show notes for everybody that wants to know more about you or have any questions. And remember, this is not just for moms, but also for dads and the role you play in this, which is very important. So thank you for everyone
Right.
for being here. If you want to know any more about my show, you can find me on alexbalgood.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, pretty much everywhere. Remember, my book is out and you can find it on Amazon and Barnes& Noble. It's called Parents Are Greatest Teachers. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for this amazing conversation. I can't wait for the next one. And for everybody else, please have an amazing and blessed day. Thank you.